Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
And I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
Joining us is Mandy from Woodhull Freedom Foundation. Hello, welcome.
Hi there.
Mandy, before we get talking about your organization, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Mandy Salley, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer over at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. But I am a social worker first, and a social justice advocate, and a sex educator, which is how I sort of fell into my role at Woodhull. I was a longtime volunteer for an event we used to run, which is called the Woodhull Sexual Freedom Summit. And I was just fortunate enough that my passion and my volunteer work was able to be turned into a career in what I'm doing at Woodhull now. So I am based in Brooklyn, New York, but Woodhull as an organization is a nationwide but DC-based organization.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm sure our viewers would love to know a little bit more about Woodhull Freedom Foundation and all the wonderful work that you do. So please expound a bit more upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Woodhull Freedom Foundation is a human rights organization first, and our mission is to affirm the human right to sexual freedom. Sexual freedom means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so Woodhull is in its 20th year now. Actually, this year is our 20th year anniversary of existence, which is really exciting for us as a nonprofit. Yeah, it seems like a big anniversary. And yeah, so our work focuses on a lot of different things. Right now, we are really concerned about censorship. We're really concerned about a lot of the anti-trans, anti-LGBT legislation we're seeing throughout the country. And so one of the ways that we are working against that is through talking about censorship, educating people about the different ways that censorship is actually a human rights violation. You know, it's not just a First Amendment violation, which would be a big enough problem on its own, right, in the United States, but it's actually a human rights violation. So we're doing a lot of work educating people about their human right to express themselves, express their sexual freedom, talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. So we're doing a lot of education around that. And we are also the lead plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit against a piece of legislation called FOSTA, which is the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. Kind of a mouthful. This is a piece of legislation that was signed into law in 2018 by then President Donald Trump, and it seeks to stop sex trafficking online. But what it actually does is censor speech online. It limits our ability to talk about sex or sexuality education or any of these legal topics on the internet. And so we are against that. We sued the federal government. The case is Woodhull v. United States of America. We had a hearing in January about FOSTA at the DC Circuit Court, of which we are waiting for a ruling. So that's a little bit about what the work that we do, but we are really the voice in the United States talking about human rights, talking about sexual freedom, and standing up for those issues.
Awesome.
It's so interesting. Mandy, can you tell our viewers what you see as some of the top threats to sexual freedom and maybe how that diverges at the national and more local level, how your approaches might be different?
Yeah, well, and thank you for highlighting that. That's important. The approaches are definitely different, particularly in the United States, because while we are this big nation with a large federal government that has a lot of power, we actually see a lot of the limits on sexual freedom come in at the hyper local level. I'm talking about like the school board, town level. And one of the issues I mentioned is censorship. And one of the things I think anybody who reads the news is probably tuned into all of the book banning that has been happening. It started sort of, I would say, like mid 2022, and it's just really ramped up since then. And, you know, why is book banning a sexual freedom issue? It's an issue because of the books that are being targeted. A lot of the books that are being targeted are books with LGBTQ characters or books that feature sexuality in some way, shape, or form, books that talk about racism or the history of racism in America or Black history. Those are the books that are being pulled off shelves, and those are the books that children in this country and people who use the public libraries in this country are being denied access to. And so that's an issue that, that's happening in your school board meetings. That's happening at your local library board meetings. And the ways in which we advocate against those are by showing up to those meetings, a lot of them are on Zoom, so you don't even have to go anywhere, and talking about it and fighting back against these groups that are often very small. One of these groups is called Moms for Liberty. You only need 10 people to have an official established chapter of Moms for Liberty. And so what that means is there are potentially 10 people in a town or in a school district who are showing up and being very loud about a particular book or content issue and getting it removed from shelves. So that's just one issue, right? The book bans are like one small part of a larger problem. I think something I'm really, really concerned about at the state level right now is anti-trans legislation, anti-drag legislation. We're seeing a lot of bills that seek to limit people's access to gender-affirming healthcare, or seek to even talk about gender identity, what it is to be gender nonconforming. And that's a real problem, because if we can't talk about these issues and talk about the people that they affect, we're erasing those people from our population and from our culture. And that's not okay. And so those bills are being introduced all over the country. There's been over 300 of them introduced in various states since January 2023. Yeah. And here we are, right? It's like we're only essentially 3 months into the year, and we've already had this many bills introduced. So I'm really concerned about what's happening in these various states. And then federally, we've got a lot going on in terms of online censorship. So a Senate committee met recently on February 14th to talk about protecting kids online. A couple of the recommendations that came out of that meeting were to pass legislation called the Kids Online Safety Act and the Earn It Act. These bills have been introduced in the past. They don't keep kids safe online. They actually promote censorship. They promote surveillance, privacy violations. And so that's sort of what we're tracking at the federal level in terms of what we're really worried about for sexual freedom in the US.
Certainly. And you have an upcoming presentation at the Sexology Summit 2023, and you'll be expounding more and really talking about, censorship of sexual freedom. So please tell us about your upcoming presentation, and then after that, tell us as well about the Sexology Summit.
Yeah, so I'm really thrilled. I'll be presenting along with our CEO, Ricky Levy, at the Sexology Summit about the censorship of sexual freedom and talking about exactly sort of what we've been talking about, right? How censorship is a human rights violation and how it's particularly affecting people who are talking about sex online. This particular summit is for pleasure professionals. So these are sex therapists, sex educators, relationship coaches, folks who might work in the adult toy industry, coming together to educate and learn from one another. So this is the first time this event has been hosted. It's going to be March 9th and 10th at the Eaton Center in DC. It is also virtual. So folks can attend in person, which is wonderful, but folks who might not be able to make it can attend virtually. So I would encourage folks to check out information about the summit. Yeah, sexpertconsultants.com/summit. You can see the full schedule, see what's happening. And we're going to be not only talking about the issue, but we're going to be telling folks what they can do about it, right? Because it's important to know about a problem, but it's even more important to know how you can create change and deal with a problem. So I'm really looking forward to that event. And I hope folks will join us either online or in person next week, actually.
Sounds extremely informative and really wonderful that you're offering the option for both in-person and virtual participation. For our viewers who want to learn more about sexual freedom, what online resources and programming do you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we thank you for pointing out the virtual and in person. It's important for us to make everything we do accessible for people. And that not only means physically accessible, but economically accessible. And so Woodhull does a ton of free virtual programming. We have a YouTube page, so Woodhull Freedom Foundation on YouTube. We post all of our programs there. There's tons of different topics. I would encourage folks to check that out. If you go to our website, woodhullfoundation.org, we also have information on a lot of the issues that we've been talking about today, resources for people to use. Our website is chock full of information. Sometimes I think like a little bit too much information. But yes, please check it out. And also we are working really, really hard to make lots of social media resources for people. So please follow us on Instagram at Woodhull Freedom. We do Instagram lives periodically with a lot of the different organizations we work with. And we post lots of information about, what's happening in the news, sexual freedom issues, all that good stuff. And we have a sexual freedom newsletter. So every other Wednesday, we send a newsletter that, tells you a little bit about what we've been up to over the past couple of weeks, and also shares some headlines about the various sexual freedom issues in the US. So folks can subscribe to that newsletter on our website and get it in their inbox every other Wednesday.
Awesome. Well, to the viewers, we will have the links in the description to the website, Linktree, all of that. We will have those in the description below. So please go ahead and check that out. Mandy, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure getting to chat with you. And thank you for the amazing work that you're doing in the space of censorship and sexual freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
To those watching, please follow Team Rayceen on social media.
And click around our YouTube channel. Check out our other interviews, vlogs, forums, and more. And while you're there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And viewers, most of all, thank you for watching.